You ready, commissioners? All right. Ready. Welcome, everyone, to the April 16, 2014 PDC Board of Commissioners meeting. Jina, please call the roll.
Chair Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Dixon.
Here.
Commissioner Kelly.
Here.
Commissioner Moyle. Absent. Commissioner Wilhoit. Absent.
And Commissioner Moyle is going to call in, hopefully very close to now, but we'll call in shortly. Charles was called out of town and won't be able to join us today. So we will start with the usual commission reports, and I've been fairly busy over the last few weeks. First of all, we had a joint Planning and Sustainability Commission meeting on March 19th, which was really a good meeting. I think we got a lot out of it. I think just having a better understanding of the issues that they're dealing with and how they deal with them, and the issues that we have and how we deal with them. And we focused on the Central East Side where they're in the late stages of doing some planning, and we're on the same page on a lot of stuff, and see the same kind of opportunities and perhaps problems. So look forward to, I think, that becoming something that they do on maybe a semi-annual basis. Just keep that relationship going. We had our first city budget meeting on April 3rd, focused mostly on sort of the reconfiguration of the urban renewal districts. I know you're going to be talking about that later. I had a chance to go up to Seattle and make a presentation to a ULI luncheon meeting prior to the regional meeting in Vancouver, BC, and that was fascinating. I was on a panel with ex-mayor Norm Rice and a very high-end architect from Vancouver, BC, and it was great to see kind of the differences between where each one of the cities are going. But the biggest thing that I got out of it was reminding myself again that the three cities are actually kind of a big region, especially in terms of how we sell ourselves to all of the countries that import and export from the East. And in a lot of ways, working together in terms of the big picture in the future is just going to be very, very positive. On Monday, I spent a little time at the auditor's office, and we got an audit overview. Tom went along with it. I would highly recommend that become part of a new commissioner's orientation program. Didn't learn a lot new, but enough that I think the half an hour was well spent by everybody. And I also announced at the first city budget meeting that I will not be pursuing a third term on the Development Commission. I will have finished 6 years in early August, I think. And in conversations with both families and partners came the conclusion that this was a logical time to move on. I made the announcement at that point because I want City Council and the mayor to have a good opportunity to find a great replacement, and also so that the board itself will have a little time to think about the next chair, because we'll be electing the next chair at the second meeting in June, just about 5 or 6 weeks off. So I have loved working with you guys all, and it was a very difficult decision to make, but I think you know, I really want to help get through this budget, get passed, get this final tweak to the urban renewal districts, because I think it will set PDC up for a pretty solid run for the next few years. We will have, we know we're going to have a mayor in place, we know have a program in place, and we'll know what the revenue stream is going to look like. So that is my report. Mr. Kelly.
So as I get more into this, I have more things to report. First of all, I did a tour of Lents, which I really enjoyed, and toured with great staff, Trang and Kevin, and that was really informative for me, in fact. And after having read things in the paper about Lents, I was kind of impressed with how much has been done and how much groundwork has been laid. So I came away feeling more positive than I thought I was going to. I went through a tutoring program with the State of Oregon's Ethics Commission that they put on online to make sure I could file my forms for that on a timely basis, which is really easy to remember because it's the same as tax time. And I as well took the time to go down to the city auditor's office and learn how those forms are all filled out, which was informative, and I just have to keep that on the front of my brain every time I have lunch or breakfast or dinner with somebody or do anything, I think. And then, sort of indirectly, but the other night I was on a panel for a Portland State event on sustainability, and interestingly enough, the first question from a student was, "Can you tell us about that Trader Joe's thing?" So I think I hope I acquitted myself well in representing the commission in that conversation. So that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon.
Well, I was able to attend the planning and sustainability meeting as well, and I had two comments that I wanted to make today. One was with the announcement of Chair Andrews stepping down. He's the only chair that I've known on this board, so obviously for me that was a huge loss when I heard the news. And he's been like a mentor to me, to take on being on a board like this, and then to add to all the other things that were going on in my young life at the time when I started, because now I feel really quite ancient. It was a lot, and I really remember his voice being kind of that calming voice that said, you know, you can do it, you can put in the time and effort, and I feel so sorry for the next poor soul that is going to take his position, because he's really set the bar high. And I hope that the city really understands what a huge loss that we will be taking with Chair Andrews stepping down. So just thank you for so much that you've done. My list is really long, but I know we'll have other opportunities to share prior to his leaving. I just want to be able to say that right now. He was a huge reason why I accepted to be on this board. And then on another sad note, we also lost another really large community leader, and that was Chris Poole-Jones, which the PDC dedicated a lot of funds to the June Key Delta project, and she was just a shining light in this community as well, and it's been kind of a devastating week. She passed away last week, and the thought of her not being in the city and being a part of this community to me is also extremely difficult. She dedicated 20 years of her life and followed through this project, this little sustainability center project. And in my opinion, she's one of those developers that got it right. She understood sustainability from not only a green building practice viewpoint, but also from a people and social and economic development sustainability. And her loss is, her passing is just a huge hole to our community, and she'll be greatly missed. So it's kind of been a somber week, and I thank her for that June Key building that we'll be able to go by on North Albina, and I'll be constantly reminded of what she contributed to the city, which was a lot.
Commissioner Colley, you had something to add?
You know, I would like to add a few comments about Chris Poole-Jones. Well, actually, my father was involved with helping her on that project starting in the early 90s when Atlantic Richfield first donated the property. And after my father passed away, I got involved in helping that organization work on putting together the June Key Delta project. I was actually on their board for, I think, 6 years, and this is all prior to, obviously, me being here. And you know, that woman was one of those people you meet in your life that really stands out as a special one. She, I know that project wouldn't have happened because she was the person who was there all through all those years, and who really, she was the rock that held that whole thing together. And that accomplishment is really pretty tremendous. It's a really great building, being a Living Futures building, Actually, it was also an opportunity for me, that project, to get to know the Colas family, so that was a special opportunity too. But Chris Poole Jones was you know, as good as it gets in Portland, Oregon, as a community person.
Thank you. Executive Director Quinton.
Thank you, Chair Andrews. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yeah, on behalf of the PDC staff, I do want to join in expressing our heartfelt condolences on Chris Poole Jones's passing. You know, we were heavily involved in that project, and a number of staff in particular spent a considerable amount of time working with Chris, and all your comments are true for everybody who worked with her. I think she will not be forgotten. Her tireless work on the project will help make it happen. It was, you know, we always talk about how important it is to have community partners and how it makes great projects, and so she's as good as it gets in her organization in terms of what a community partner does and what kind of commitment they demonstrate to both not just the project but their neighborhood. So we're a big impact here at PDC, and I do think we want to figure out an appropriate way to honor her legacy. So more to come on that. It's obviously pretty early on that, but I think we want to think about the appropriate way to do that. And of course, if you have any thoughts on ways that we might honor her, you know, let us know. But I think staff's trying to think about how we can do that. You know, it's interesting. It has been a tough time. As I was thinking about Chris Poole Jones, you know, it's only been a few weeks, but I didn't want to forget that Portland lost another great leader in Charles Jordan on April 4th. I never had the pleasure of knowing him or working with him, but his legacy is massive as well. And I know so many people that we work with, particularly folks who are involved in the parks world, really felt his passing significantly, and so you know his legacy will live on in many ways. But yeah, two real community leaders have left us in the past month. Lots going on. Once again, another busy time for us, and I had the good fortune or misfortune of missing a lot of it because I got picked on jury duty, and so I was out for about a week with that. You know, my entire schedule was completely eradicated. So, you know, Jina made great work of that, but so many people filled in. And then I was able to go to Vancouver last week for this ULI conference and our Rose Fellowship work. And so I do feel like I'm increasingly absent around here. But like I said, we have a great staff, so things go on and much happens. As Chair Andrews mentioned, that we're in budget season right now, and we did have our budget work session on the 3rd. I think that went well. Lots of questions about kind of the future of our urban renewal areas, and so I think that was a healthy conversation. Lots of great work by our by Faye and her budget team, Tony Barnes, Courtney Cohn, and Kate Ryan on this. And I know we're going to have a budget presentation, so they'll walk you through what's left in the budget season, but we still have a number of milestones on that. As usual, we continue to get great news about the local economy, local companies. As Chair Andrews knows, we are now considered to have the lowest office vacancy rate in the United States, and much of that is due to the fast growth of our software companies, technology companies like Puppet Labs and Java and eBay, and now Airbnb, which announced that they were opening their operational headquarters for North America. They're headquartered in San Francisco, but they're going to have a significant presence right here in Old Town. They're taking over the space that will be vacated by Thetis, and Thetis is moving to another building downtown, and we're working on that project as well. So just a ton happening, lots of positive stories, and we need more development. We need more buildings built downtown. One other part of the creative industry is our film industry, and the Portland Tribune did a nice story on that. We continue to experience great growth in that industry, almost $111 million impact to our economy from the film industry, and featured our own Shelley Mattoon, who is an all-star in working with all those companies. We get great reviews on Shelley's work, kind of facilitating the process. So nice to get some good press on that. And then I think it's only fair to mention, because it was newsworthy, that there was news about Banfield Pet Hospital. Banfield Pet Hospital announced they're moving their headquarters, which are now located on 82nd in Portland, to Vancouver. We had worked closely with Banfield in recent months to provide them options for staying in Portland, and we knew that they were seriously looking at sites elsewhere in the region. So we feel like we gave them a lot of competitive options, and ultimately they made a choice that fits their company's priorities and desires. So sad. It's sad to lose the jobs, but they're staying in the region. I think it's not disruptive generally for the workforce. And since we've been working more closely with our regional partners over the past few years, we try to not make these situations too competitive. We try and offer a great value for companies that want to be anywhere in the region and are always happy when the jobs stay in the region. And so we're certainly happy for our friends in Vancouver that they're going to retain Banfield in the region. As usual, a number of events. I got the pleasure of attending, almost by coincidence, one of our MPI events. Our 42nd Avenue folks had their annual Connections event. Great community planning event, lots of political leadership there, Mayor Hales and Commissioner Smith from the Multnomah County Board. My son was playing in his middle school, Beaumont Middle School band, which happened to be the entertainment for the 42nd Avenue event, and so I went for the music, but I got to actually see our great MPI folks doing their work. So truly, that's a great organization, great crowd, and everything. That same week, I was a judge for the University of Oregon New Venture Championship. This is the second year I've done this. They have it over at the White Stag Building. They get about 20 submissions from around the world, and truly around the world. It's a global event, and all sorts of really university-based startups. So each of the startups the program tries to get MBA students who are working with the researchers in their university to take innovations that come out of those departments and find commercial applications. So it's real high growth type of companies. So that's a great event, and that program at University of Oregon continues to grow. The chair Andrews, and the mayor and I had the opportunity to attend the OCOM's annual Cherry Blossom Dinner fundraiser, and we received an award for our support for their project, and much of that credit goes to Chair Andrews and his support for that project throughout a very difficult time getting that building financed. But they were very appreciative of all of our work. So it was a nice event for recognition for PDC. And then last week we hosted our second, we call them I3 PDX events, but it's Innovate, Invest, Include Portland, and it's our series on promoting diversity and technology and entrepreneurship, and it's leading up to our next started PDX challenge. But we hosted that event here last Thursday, another packed house, and this one was connecting entrepreneurs with a lot of different resource providers, so that they they know who to work with as they move forward. But we're getting just a ton of interest with each event. We get more and more interest from folks around the community. So more to come on that, but it's turning out to be a nice initiative. I think, as I mentioned to you, I might have mentioned to you last time, the Grove Hotel RFP closed. We received 11 responses. We've narrowed that to 5. I think the Oregonian did a public records request, so they wrote about this yesterday, but there are five finalists, and we're now actually interviewing those 5 finalists. So we had 2 interviews today, and we hope to make a recommendation to the board by the end of April. Well, I guess it would come in May, but that's our timeline. It's been it's a great reflection of how the market's improved, and particularly the interest in Old Town has improved to get such a great response to that RFP. And as the Oregonian wrote, there really are a range of options from the hostel concept, a couple of those, to small offices as well as micro apartments. So it reflects a range of needs as well. One more announcement just announced today. I just, on behalf of TriMet, I just thought I'd point out that they announced the name of the new bridge today. It's going to be called the Tillicum Crossing. That's the name, which I guess means Bridge of the People. They were down to 4 finalists. I can't name them off the top of my head. I think Dunaway was one of them. I forget the others, but that's the new name. They had an unveiling, so there's a banner now on the bridge that has that name on it. 2 more upcoming events. The Urban League is hosting its annual Career Connections Jobs Fair at the Convention Center. That's on April 22nd, so you can find that information on their website. And PI, the Portland Incubator Experiment, one of our accelerator partners, has their latest class. Their applications are open and will be accepted through April 30th. And their email address or their website is pipdx.com. On the international front, I just want to point out that we currently have a group of companies in Japan with 2 PDC staffers. The companies are all athletic and outdoor companies, small companies that make either apparel or some kind of design type product. And we've been successful in bringing our green building companies to Japan and putting on seminars and introducing them to companies in Japan. And so we offered an invitation to companies in the athletic and outdoor industry and had a great response. So I think we have 9 companies there. And then when the article ran about this upcoming trip, we got a bunch of companies that asked if they, how do they get on the list for these trips? So we're trying to do regular updates from Japan. Sue Ball and Mitsu Yamasaki are both there. And so you can look on our website to see what's going on a daily basis. And then our next international trip is actually one that I'm going on with Michael Gerton to Colombia. We got an invitation. I got an invitation to speak at a UN-sponsored event on green buildings and sustainable development. And so we're building a week of activities around that, and we're bringing right now 3 or 4 companies to Bogota and Medellin. So that'll be and that's a We Build Green Cities type of event. Before I talk about Chair Andrews' announcement, I just want to highlight a few other personnel changes that impact us. First off, I think many of you heard that one of our great partners, Greater Portland Inc., is going to have a leadership change. Their CEO, Sean Robbins, was named the new director of Business Oregon, and so that'll be effective June 1st. So that's, it's great to have somebody that we've worked so closely with in that role. We certainly want to thank and wish Tim McCabe best of luck. Tim's been a long time serving in that role and been a great partner to PDC, and it's been great to have just continuous good relationships with the state. And then another one was announced yesterday is that my first boss here at PDC, former development director of PDC, Cheryl Tweedy, who was at Metro, is now taking over as the director of community development for the city of Beaverton. And so if you follow that used to be Don Mazziotti's job. He used to have my job. And then Don retired, and then now Cheryl Tweedy. So there's a direct pipeline there. I guess that's my next job, is Beaverton.
We didn't say that.
I walked right into that one. We have two new staff to announce, to highlight. The first one's on the right end of our front row here is Jill Chen, who's our new lending and investment manager. Very excited to have Jill with us. She started, I think in January, but then took a month to go to China, and now she's back, so she's now back full-time. But Jill, very deep experience in lending and investment banking, both in the traditional private sector, but also in kind of the socially responsible investing. For the past 7 years, she was with the Grameen Foundation, which is associated with the Grameen Bank, which is one of the initial innovators in microenterprise lending, and so that's an incredible organization. But she's worked at the World Bank, at ABN AMRO, and then she was also with Deloitte Touche and Pepsi as a finance manager. So Jill was working for Grameen, but based here. She's moved all around the world, but she's been based here for quite a while and wanted to stay here, and so we're happy that we could bring her aboard. So welcome, Jill. And then the lady sitting next to Jill is Ashley Emig, and Ashley is a new student worker that we have working in our records management team. So Mike Salisbury, sitting right next to her, is our records management coordinator, and as a public agency, we have a legal responsibility to maintain all of our records according to different protocols, different retention, and so it is an ongoing significant amount of work, and so we brought Ashley on to help Mike. You don't want to see in our warehouse next door how many boxes that we have of records that need to be archived, and so Ashley is she's pursuing a master's degree in library and information science at Emporia State University. So this is basically her field of study, and she did this work at OHSU's Historical Collections and Archives Center. So she's definitely brings a lot of experience to this job. So welcome, Ashley. And then lastly, I just have to say, like Commissioner Dixon said, there's no way to talk about how you replace Jerry Andrews in this job. I feel a little bit the same sentiment in terms of coming into a new job and being able to have someone who could mentor me and someone to bounce stuff off of and to kind of cool me down when I either get angry or emotional about stuff and have your back. But more than that, just the leadership and the involvement in our project work, it's been an unprecedented, I think, part of what you've done as chair. And I know staff have gotten to know you quite well and are going to miss your involvement in their work. But more to come on that. We have lots of time to embarrass you publicly, and we also know that you're not going anywhere. So we'll have many opportunities to work with you going forward. But I guess congratulations are in order to you and to Linda, so she'll get that time back that you've been devoting to us. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, and you're right. I'm not going anyplace. I love Portland, and I'm not retiring. So I'm sure that I will pop up somewhere else in the not too distant future. But welcome, Jill. Good to see you back from China. And Ashley, just make sure that, every 2 or 3 hours they let you out of the warehouse and you get to see daylight and fresh air and that sort of stuff. Okay, is Mr. Mullis with us, or are we still waiting? All right. We'll move on then to the meeting minutes of March 12th, 2014. The three of us were in attendance. I will point out that the minutes are missing the usual YouTube link because we don't have one yet. It was a 2-hour and 40-minute meeting, and I think the length of it, the size of the file is causing us some problems with the YouTube. But we will have it. We will post it, and if somebody wants it later on and they can't find it online, they can always call and get it. So with that, I would look for a motion to approve the March 12th, 2014 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes, additions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we have, next is public comment for items not on the agenda. I do have one signed up, actually. This is testimony on an item that's on, but Mr. Levy, you can't stick around. We'd love to hear from you. So, Bruce Levy.
Thank you much. I didn't realize that it wasn't on the agenda, but my name is Bruce Levy. I'm a Pearl District resident and a member of the Neighborhood Association, and I'm here simply to say thank you for the impending approval, it turns out, of our long-awaited and very much needed traffic signals in the Pearl District. Just last night at our regular Pearl District Neighborhood Association Planning Committee meeting, we learned from Ross Swanson of PBOT that the implementation of these 4 priority intersections, signals for these intersections, was being funded by your organization. And I just wanted to say thanks on behalf of a lot of us who you don't normally see. We're out there in the neighborhood and just very grateful for these safety features. In the 10 years that I've been here, I'm a relative newcomer, our neighborhood has grown by leaps and bounds to the point where we're actually an extension of our dense downtown core and need to be thought of in that way. Not everyone views us in the Pearl as the truly diverse, mixed use and mixed income neighborhood that we've become, with a whole lot of pedestrians and bicyclists and plenty of tourists and motorists adding to the mix. So we hope this will be approved. We look forward to its implementation. It will be a huge safety improvement for all of us, and just want to thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming in and telling us. And this is for item number 9, which will come up a little later.
Right, I didn't realize that.
No problem.
Wasn't
Thanks
there.
for being
Thank you for your time, all of you.
Okay, moving on to the regular agenda. The first item is a informational item anyway, so we don't need Commissioner Moyle. It is an update on the Lents 5-year action plan, report 1414, Kimberly, Branam, and Trang.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton. I'm Kimberly Branam, Deputy Director here, and I'm joined by Trang, who heads up our neighborhood team. So we are here to present the Lents Town Center Urban Renewal Area 5-year action plan as an information item. Like the Old Town Chinatown action plan that we brought before you this fall, this action plan takes a holistic cross-bureau approach that is tailored to the Lents Urban Renewal Area. And with the Lents URA sunsetting in 2020, this action plan takes us through 5 of the last critical years and the last push of activity in this district. So it is intended to really activate and hopefully accomplish a lot of the things that we have set out to do. So I'm going to provide some context and background, and then Trang is going to touch on the goals and actions and outcomes that we intend to accomplish with our partners. So how did we get to this 5-year action plan? In close collaboration with the Mayor's Office, we began the Lents Action Plan with a bias towards action and the desire to see visible results and against duplicating previous efforts. So the Lents Action Plan builds on the research, findings, and outreach work accomplished through the Foster Lents Integration Partnership, or FLIP, which is a Metro-supported cross-bureau planning effort with the goal of aligning city and community priorities. FLIP focused on the West Foster Corridor from 50th to 82nd, and the East Foster Corridor from I-205 to 122nd, so it did not include the Lents Town Center area. And over a 3-year period, there were a number of stakeholder meetings, open houses, and an online survey. We then worked with the Neighborhood Economic Development Leadership Group Subcommittee, which is chaired by Annette Matson, who is here with us today, and a City Technical Advisory Committee, many of whom the members of the advisory committee were also on the FLIP program and helped us refine the plan. We then checked back in to solicit input from our Lents community stakeholders and heard that this was the right approach to really focus on action and to do something that felt like a work plan and felt achievable. And then obviously we're here today and we'll be bringing a report to City Council next month. So our approach to Lents has been shaped by our guiding strategic documents and incorporates input that we've received along the way. So I'd like to highlight a couple of the things that we've learned through the process. Back to 2010, through the Lents Town Center Business District Strategy, you'll see that comes a lot of support for capacity building, a business district association, and the Lents Grown work and efforts that have come forward. From the Neighborhood Economic Development Strategy, you'll see a focus on our work in commercial corridors, as well as wealth creation and employment opportunities for people of color and low-income residents. Through the Portland Housing Opportunity Analysis that the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability did in collaboration with PSU and the Housing Bureau, you'll see a sensitivity to gentrification and some of the housing affordability pressures that we're already seeing in some of the Lents URA neighborhoods. And all of the projects that were identified for implementation through the FLIP process that were intended to be implemented in a 5-year period are included as well. And some of the themes that came through that, the importance of safety on our corridors, the importance of mitigating for the 5-year plan, as well as the nodes on Southeast Foster and really focusing efforts on those 2 nodes you'll see reflected. And then finally, through our work with our Technical Advisory Committee and our Redevelopment Subcommittee, we began to focus on 92nd as a focal point within the Lents Town Center. So historically, we've thought of the Lents Town Center sort of as concentric circles or as a whole, and given that we own 40% of the property, we've had an interest in activating the entire Lents Town Center. And what we saw through the process was that 92nd being the most pedestrian-friendly street and an area of natural activity felt like the right place to focus our efforts. And so you'll see that reflected today. And it actually turns out that historically the name of 92nd was Main Street. So is that right? That's right. So the other thing that we held on to through this was that with 2,800 acres in the urban renewal area, touching 6 neighborhoods and 3 business districts, this could not be a one-size-fit-all approach. And so we organized the action plan around 4 focused geographies: commercial corridors, neighborhood centers, residential, industrial, and open space. Each of the focused geographies have goals, actions, and objectives that work together but really are different amongst themselves. So Trang?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to take you through the goals, objectives, and some of the actions that are in this action plan, as well as some of the metrics that we've designed to definitely check ourselves on an annual basis and then see what success looks like in a 5-year time frame. So the action plan goals. In the Lents Town Center area, we call these the neighborhood centers, and we're looking to, within these goals, to focus our investment where it makes the most impact. The first node is the Lents Town Center, which we're trying to stimulate development that positively changes the reputation and increases the vitality of the Lents Town Center. Similarly, in the West Foster node, we're building on the positive momentum and infrastructure investments to improve the quality of the place by tenanting and redeveloping PDC-owned properties, as well as promoting private investment and supporting businesses. Our commercial corridor resources will be used for PDC and PBOT to increase safety and vitality of the Lents commercial corridor area, which includes 82nd, Powell, 122nd, and definitely Foster West and Foster East area. The residential area really is focused on affordable housing, and here we're focusing over $9.1 million from the Housing Bureau to preserve housing affordability for homeowners and renters and encouraging construction of new units. And finally, we're looking at open space and industrial areas in the East Foster area to intensify our industrial uses, which helps create jobs, as well as to plan for mitigation of a 100-year flooding in there. So the first objective and action that I'm going to take you through is the neighborhood center, the Lents Town Center. As Kimberly mentioned earlier, our approach in the past has been to take a look at this as a holistic town center, which is a pretty large area. And with the work with our subcommittee group as well as our bureau partners, we're focusing on 92nd. We've actually kicked that off last month with coming to the board for the approval of the lease for Z-Haas Brewing at the former Air Rat Bakery building. Some of the actions that we're focusing on is really around redevelopment and figuring out how do we create a there for the town center. Where our approach is in the next couple years to really focus on kind of the small wins, which is really re-tenanting some of the buildings along 92nd Avenue, but at the same time really focusing on what our subcommittee and what we've heard loudly from the community is a game changer. And so the game changer can come in the form of those small wins, but it also can come in the form of an anchor tenant, a grocery anchor tenant that the community has aspired for. So we're really focusing on both of those efforts in tandem. The redevelopment in the town center, as Kimberly mentioned, we own 40% of the property here. So that includes re-tenanting and redevelopment of over 11 properties that PDC owns. So those are the actions there. Private property owners, as you know, we've been working diligently with various property owners. You've seen some of the storefront improvements there, but one good story that we have is that after the approval of the last board meeting, the property owner across the street from our building called us up and said that he wants to redevelop as well. So this is actually starting to have momentum in the town center. As part of this goal here, we're also pairing our work with business development, with building capacity for the Lents grown, and then also really focusing on the businesses that are there and helping them grow. We're also finishing up some of the infrastructure projects that are in the Lents Town Center. The Lents entryway, that's been completed, as well as the Foster Woodstock project. In the other neighborhood center, the West Foster node, which is between 64th and 72nd, we also came to the board last month with a lease for the Mercado, so that this starts to kick off the work that we're doing in this area. Again, we're leveraging some of the great work that PBOT's been doing in this area with the Foster Streetscape project. That is from 52nd to 89th Avenue. We're focusing here on redevelopment of our own properties, but at the same time, we're encouraging long-term property owners such as the Mount Scott Field side, which is in blue right here, and a very iconic building right here in the little small dot is the Phoenix Pharmacy. So we've been facilitating conversations with them and helping them with using our programs for redevelopment of these properties. And finally, PDC focuses on promoting business development, and here we're using our programs, loans and grant programs, to help businesses along this corridor. In the commercial corridor area, we are investing in commercial corridor safety, partnering with PBOT as well as with Metro to both implement the rapid transit metro line that will be passing through the Powell area. So not only will we be running through the Lents area, but it'll also be touching our Jade District, NPI area, as well as the Midway Division area. We've come to the board a couple months ago with one of the infrastructure projects along 122nd between Ramona and Holgate, which will improve drastically the safety along that corridor for the residents there and children near the school there. And finally, our main focus in our commercial corridor is really commercial corridor vitality and business development. Here we'll be focusing on assisting our current businesses, growing them, as well as retaining the folks that are there, and then finding opportunities where we can actually do a bit of mixed-use development as well. In the residential area, which is really focused on affordable housing, this is led by the Portland Housing Bureau, our partners that have been leading the housing efforts in all of our urban renewal areas. They'll be focusing on using their existing programs to really help homeowners repair and stay in their homes, and also to build more home ownership in this area. They'll also be focusing on opportunities where they can partner with both private and nonprofit entities out there to create new affordable housing units. And then finally, our last geographic area, which is the industrial and open space area. This area is really an area where we have both creating new jobs as well as restoring some regional assets that are there. So here, PDC will continue to work on working with our traded sector businesses. We will be working with long-term property owners to intensify their redevelopment along this corridor. At the same time, through the FLIP project, we recognize that although the 50-year flood mitigation has been completed, the 100-year flood mitigation still needs to be planned and developed in the future. And so one of the actions in here is really trying to find a lead for this so that everyone can partner and start developing the project scope to mitigate the 100-year flooding. This actually has impacts on both residential homeowners for their insurance purposes, and it also has an economic impact on businesses along here for redevelopment as well. In addition to doing some business development, we're facilitating redevelopment of privately owned properties. And so those include both industrial land folks, but then it also includes some of our regional destinations, such as Leach Botanical Garden, Zenger Farms, and then also the Springwater wetlands. So what does success look like in 5 years? We have a full page of metrics where we'll be analyzing on an annual basis and collecting with our Bureau partners and community partners. But in general, you know, some of the key measures that we'll be taking a look at is really in our neighborhood centers and in industrial and open space. We'll be measuring ourselves more on redevelopments and seeing some very large physical changes happening with 5 projects either under construction or constructed in the Lents Town Center, a couple in the West Foster node, and then finally our regional assets being developed in the industrial and open space area. And on the right-hand side, where we're looking at the commercial corridors and our affordable housing, we're looking at metrics that are based on some of the programs that PDC and the Housing Bureau administers to help businesses as well as residents in this area. I'd like to take a moment here to acknowledge and thank you all the folks that have been involved in this long, extensive process with us and has given us great direction on this work. First, I'd like to thank our Neighborhood Economic Development Leadership Group, the Redevelopment Subcommittee in particular, and a special thanks to Annette Metzen for leading us through this effort. It took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and her leadership is very appreciated, especially for me being new to the district. I also like to thank the Lents community for their thoughtful feedback and really working through all of this with us and having a very positive attitude and optimism about, you know, the work that we are doing out there. And then finally, you know, a very special thanks to all of our Bureau partners that have not only worked through this last 8 months with us for the action plan, but through the 3 years with us for the FLIP project as well.
And I just want to recognize some of the staff as well who've contributed a lot of time. So Kevin Cronin managed the FLIP project, and Allison Wicks did a lot of back work to support the Lents action plan, and then of course Trang. So I want to recognize the great staff work.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure that we'll further recognize them at the end. Well, we have 2 folks who are signed up for testimony, and as we usually do, we'll call them up, have them give testimony, ask questions, and then bring you guys back up for the board. In the meantime, Commissioner Moyle is ready to join us. Why don't we do that? And at the same time, Annette Matson and Nick Christensen, would you like to come forward? Hold on 1 second while we get Commissioner Moyle on the phone. Hope it works. Commissioner Moyle?
Commissioner Moyle, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for joining us. We were about...
Sorry for the delay. If I could just explain, I was in a State Apprenticeship Task Force Committee that was appointed the last legislative session, a meeting at Tangent, which is just south of Albany. Now on the road to Bend for a couple meetings tomorrow, but I'll do my best to participate by phone. I'll go on mute
Okay, thanks, John. Just drive careful while you're listening, okay? We have in front of us Annette Mattson and Nick Christensen. It's public testimony on the Lents 5-year action plan. Thank you.
When the opportunity to chair the subcommittee came up, I was really excited because I care so deeply about the vitality of the Lents URA. And I was also a bit intimidated because I saw the tremendous quality of the people on this subcommittee. It was pretty inspiring. I was anxious because I really want this effort to do right by the citizens of the Lents URA because they deserve it. And in the end, I agreed to chair this subcommittee because I really wanted to make sure this plan was different, that it would be effective, and that it would be implemented. So many plans had been done before, and to paraphrase one of the subcommittee members, he said, "We have lots of plans. Where is the action?" Well, this plan to date is a high-level summary of the work already done that directs efforts over the next 5 years on impactful, game-changing projects within the URA. It assures benefits that may be seen across the geographical area, but without being so scattered that they will lose synergy. I won't go into detail on the plan, you've all read it. I just want to say how pleased I am with the process. The way Trang and her team took all the work done to date, all the studies and plans and community input over the years, and prioritized without reinventing the wheel. Their work was brought to the subcommittee, and we very energetically and enthusiastically and at times very directly critiqued, tweaked, and reworked. We had some really exciting conversations. The work was then brought to area community stakeholders that had been involved in the past to make sure that the plan was in keeping with what had been heard over the years from the community. It was an efficient use of time and public monies. And as a taxpayer, I really appreciate that. Personally, I'm excited to see business assistance programs supported in this. I've seen some promising concepts in businesses in the URA fail, frankly, because they were not managed well as businesses. And once we get a storefront full, we want to keep it, and we want to keep it prosperous. I'm also very pleased to see something included in this plan that your staff members can tell you I have harped on for years, and that is metrics, measurable outcomes. These are important to accountability, whether you are a business, a nonprofit, or a government. This plan has them. Lastly, as chair of the subcommittee, I want to say that we are really looking forward to moving this plan forward. The Lents 5-year action plan can't be just the NED plan or the PDC plan. We need to work to assure that this is Portland's plan for the Lents Town Center URA, from the mayor's office, through the bureaus, the council, the neighborhoods. We all need to take ownership and responsibility for the success of the Lents Town Center urban renewal area, because a city is only as strong as its weakest neighborhood. Thank you.
Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton, Nick Christensen. I was chair of the Lents Neighborhood Association from 2010 to 2013. Thanks as always for your time today. I'm here to talk about patient capital, one of the most powerful tools the PDC has in its toolbox, the ability to wait for conditions to be right before acting so that long-term outcomes are the best for communities and our city. The challenge with patient capital is knowing when to strike and being ready when the time is right. And I'm here to congratulate your staff on having a plan that prepares us for that moment, which increasingly appears to be now. This impressive action plan is a roadmap, is the roadmap that we need to plan for the next 5 years. It provides us with the direction and flexibility that we need to do the right things for the Lents Town Center. It also addresses consistent community concerns throughout the URA about levels of investment in different communities by spelling out the level of energy and time the city is willing to put into the Lents Town Center and other areas within the Urban Renewal District so that we're not competing amongst each other. We know what the plan is going to be. It's not enough to wait for growth to trickle outward from Central Portland. We need a healthy and strong Lents Town Center to support the economy of East Portland, to provide the residents who live east of 82nd Avenue all of the great benefits of neighborhood livability that make Portland so great. One of the key decisions in this plan that memorializes that is the restoration of 92nd as Lent's Main Street. When the town of Lent was founded, 92nd was Main Street. See, we even got it stamped on the sidewalks with the Streetscapes project last year. Thanks, Sue. Now more and more property owners are investing and improving their storefronts on Main Street, showing a renewed commitment to 92nd as the backbone of our community. The plan that's before you today will help support regional destinations that improve our community, including the Leach Botanical Garden, the Urban Grange at Zenger Farm, and the livability of 122nd Avenue. It sets a path so we can start thinking about what is increasingly Lent's greatest livability threat: soaring flood insurance premiums rising 18% every year, now costing Lent's residents more than $1 million a year, so that we can try to remove homes and businesses from the threat of flooding and solve this problem and get that money back into our economy and not rebuilding homes in New Jersey and North Dakota and wherever it happens to be flooding at the moment. And it addresses the other great threat to improving communities in our city, displacement, by doubling down on programs that encourage people to stay in a neighborhood after it improves so that they can experience the benefits of gentrification, such as improved livability and a strong economy, without being forced out. It's great to see specifics in this document, deliverables, dollar amounts, and ways to measure success. This is great work from your staff, and I know my neighbors in Lents are really excited about how this is moving forward. It's all good news. As you know, it's getting better, thanks in part to the hard work of your staff. My neighbors look forward to joining you in celebrating the success of each of these goals spelled out in the master plan as they are realized. Thank you again for your time and commitment.
Well, thank you, both of you, for all of the time and effort that you've put in, not on just on this project, but I know for a number of years in terms of a lot of the efforts that have gone on in Lents. I'm going to have more comments when staff comes up, but I will say in particular, I was really pleased to see the metrics as you talked about, because now we have something that both the neighborhood and PDC agrees on that we can take a look at, and sometimes it's not that easy 5 years out to say what it was that you thought success would look like, and we're going to know, and that's a good thing. Any questions or comments from either of you? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We bring the staff back to the table. I'm going to start by just saying I have probably visited this district more than any other than the central city, because that's where I work. Since I started at PDC 6 years ago, I love to take field trips. So when we got projects and opportunities in front of me, on the weekend, I'd go out to the Eastside and check out Lents and check out Gateway. And I know an awful lot about that neighborhood at this point, and it's definitely getting better. I would remind you that this is the second of 4 sort of neighborhood-based action plans that we have going forward: Old Town, Chinatown, Gateway, Lents, and why can't I think of the fourth one? Central Eastside. There we go. And I think this is absolutely the perfect time to move to this level of detail, because I think what we all forget, and happily forget from time to time, is that the financial world almost collapsed in 2009. And I will tell you, I don't care where you were, from 2009 until about 2012, it was very, very difficult to get any kind of project off the ground. Nonetheless, we really do have some momentum in a lot of the districts, and this one in particular, the long-awaited streetscape improvements, which I think are kind of transformed for a lot of people just driving through it, the neighborhood. I mean, it's only the first step, but your impression of Lents today versus even a year ago, I think, has changed quite a bit. The storefront program that we are just in the process of completing, getting the brew pub put into the space, the Mercado project, they're all things that we can start to build on. So the economy is going to help us, and having this kind of a plan where we can focus on developments, I think, is really terrific. Before I turn it over, the last thing I wanted to say was to remind you that this is not an action plan, although there are a lot of numbers that are up here in particular areas. All of them are going to come back to the commission in the form of projects or programs, and although, you know, they're in budgets that go out for 4 or 5 years, the commission is going to have an opportunity, obviously, for, you know, its usual discretion in terms of making sure that we're getting the right leverage and it's the right project at the time. So, thank you, and I'll thank you again at the end, but I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Dixon for questions and comments.
Okay, well, I think that the two people that spoke before the two of you, Annette and Nick, just kind of said it all. I mean, they summarized exactly how this plan moving forward is going to make a difference, and I just pleased to be able to hear people from the community and that are working within the community saying that, because I think that's what we're trying to do is have a positive impact on those people that live within these districts. And I also think that we were really careful in thinking about everything from really sensitive issues like gentrification to the flooding issues and, you know, all of these real life scenarios that could completely destroy a community. So I really appreciate that those were well thought out as well in this action plan. I know you guys have worked really hard and have a lot of people that have contributed to those thoughts, but this is a really well put together plan, and I'm pleased with it. I know it's just informational at this point, but we've already, even the last board meeting, we had 2 big projects that we approved coming out of Lents, so just looking forward to seeing what that will continue to produce in the district over the next couple of years. One question I just had was about the grocer anchor tenant. Who do the people in the community, who are they looking to that they want? Do they just want any? And is it for sure a potential mixed-use type project?
Well, I can ask the community members that are here.
I mean, just from our experience within these last couple of months, I'd just be curious. It seemed like that was one of the big projects on the list.
Do you want to speak to it? Yeah.
I think the community members want something that we don't already have in the area. We still can, we have access to a Fred Meyer and a Walmart. It's not great access, and obviously, you know, if you don't have a car, it's really poor access. But, you know, having something in the Lents Town Center that says we have economic vitality, that this is a great location, not only for the residents, but because of its transportation access through I-205, Woodstock, the Springwater, the Green Line, that says that Lents is a hub for East Portland and is an important place for a grocer that isn't otherwise east of 82nd Avenue, whatever that may be.
Okay.
Wink, wink, nudge.
Well, I'm sure you'll have plenty of time and discussions as those plans go on. And I think the community involvement, obviously, early is very important lesson to learn from some other projects we've had.
Right now, people are paying $4 a gallon for milk at 7-Eleven. They're paying $1.25 for an apple. So,
That's
you know,
terrible.
prices aren't what scare people off, I don't think.
Right.
Thank you. Commissioner Kelly?
Well, you know, I think I'm still on the learning curve, but my tour of Lents was sure helpful and me better understanding, and I think I commented earlier I hadn't been to Lents for a while, and to just see the changes that have happened was much more impressive than I was expecting. The only concern I have about all this is, and again, this kind of goes back to the lessons learned from Northeast Portland, and is there enough of an investment in affordable housing? You know, it's certainly an effort to keep people in houses that you know, are there now is a really important one. And recognizing that we aren't the housing arm of this whole thing, but to really learn from that experience, I think, is so important. And we don't want to be here 10 years from now saying, wow, what a successful effort in Lents, but what about all those people that were displaced? We just don't want that to happen. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of that no matter what, but that'd be the only just kind of, you know, piece of all of this. And makes me nervous, and I don't really have any recommendation to make any change, just want to make that comment. And I just really appreciate from, again, being a new person, what seems to be the input from the community out there and the volunteerism and all that, as well as the good work by the staff.
Thank you. Commissioner Moyle? I don't know if you can hear me. Can you try?
Yes, thanks, Chair Andrews. I'd just like to thank Trang and all the staff for their work, and Ms. Mattson and Mr. Christensen for their leadership, and all the students that participated. The one remark of Mr. Christensen that I think is really important is trying to get the flooding issue. There's a lot of land that provides certainty for people. There could be a lot of there in the future. I lost my thoughts, so I lost my last thought. It'll just stop there. Oh, I was going to say, Lents obviously has lots of challenges, but I think, especially as the economy recovers, there's going to be a lot of opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Challenges and opportunity. Sounds familiar. Well, thank you again. Thank you for your time and effort. Thank you for a great report. Thanks for this to the staff for all of the hard work. And now we're going to be checking the progress against those metrics over the next 5 years. So, no action. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is an action item. It's Resolution 7042, authorizing a purchase and sale agreement to convey 0.31 acres of real property in the Central Eastside Urban Renewal Area to the Fair-Haired Dumbbell LLC for $1,160,000. Eric Jacobson and Geraldene Moyle. And I do need to announce that I do have, as I have said before, a potential conflict of interest with this particular project. Neither I or my company has any financial interest in this project, but we do have a relationship with staff at the company. So as a potential, I'm still able to participate in the discussion, and I'm still able to vote.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews and Commissioners. My name is Eric Jacobson with the Real Estate and Lending Team.
And I'm Geraldene Moyle with the Central City Team.
And we're here today to present a purchase and sale agreement to convey Block 76 East in the Burnside Bridgehead. On this diagram, it is this property shaded in red. It's at the corner of East Burnside Street, Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and then bordered by westbound Cooch Street as it winds its way back to connect to the Burnside Bridge. So we're asking you to approve Resolution 7042, which will sell the property to the Fair-Haired Dumbbell LLC. This is a fair market value transaction as determined by an appraisal in 2013. Our partner, the Fair-Haired Dumbbell LLC, the company behind that is Guerrilla Development, which is a Portland-based developer that specializes in small infill projects. Some of the ones you may be familiar with are the Ocean, which is a cluster of micro restaurants at Northeast Gleason and 23rd, and the Burnside Rocket, which is an office building at East Burnside and 11th Street. And Anna McKay with Guerrilla Development is here in the audience today in case you would like to hear directly from her their vision for this project, or if you have any questions of her. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Geraldene, who will give you some history about the Burnside Bridgehead Framework Plan and how we came to work with Guerrilla Development on this project.
So in 2009, we established the Burnside Bridgehead Framework Plan, which set an intention for the redevelopment of the 4-acre, 4-block property at the east end of the Burnside Bridge. And the framework plan outlined the goals and objectives that were intended to promote further development in the Central East Side with, first of all, immediate development that ties well into the remainder of the area. And it wasn't our intent to build big and tall. It was our intent to get something going as soon as possible to catalyze and ignite further development in the Central East Side. We were looking for uses that were complementary to the surrounding area and that started to create more of an 18-6 atmosphere. And we were looking for development that supported the entrepreneurial focus of the district. With the establishment of the framework plan, we worked with Beam Development in regards to the development of blocks 68 and 69, and that's what we now know as the Eastside Exchange Project, which is the large building in the center of the slide. And then we also issued a request for interest for the remaining 3 blocks. We received interest at that time for all of the sites, including Kevin Kavanaugh on Block 76. And so what you see before you today is a result of the RFI and our work at that time with Kevin. We now have active projects on all the parcels, and many of these have come before you in the last 2 years. So Block 68, the Eastside Exchange, Block 67 and 76 West with Key Development, Block 75 with Block 75 LLC, and Block 76 East, which is the one before you today with Guerrilla Development. I think the important thing to note is that the evolution of the area and the change in the market has resulted in these last 3 being market rate transactions, and that the sale proceeds from all of the transactions are now available for, or will be available for, other project and program priorities, and that's estimated at about $5.2 million. We also have a mix of uses that complement and enhance Produce Row and the rest of the Central East Side, and total that's about 198,000 square feet of office and commercial and about 345 residential units. In addition, other recent and underway projects in the immediate area include the Central East Side Lofts, the New Seasons Commissary, the Templeton Building, which is directly across the bridge from the Burnside Bridgehead, and most recently in the news, the Stark Vacuum redevelopment, which is just a block and a half to the east of the site. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Eric, who will give you more detail on the actual transaction.
So let's start with talking about the property. It's located at the east, in the central city, at the east side of the Burnside Bridge. It's about 13,000 square feet. It's small and unusual shaped and has unusual access in part because of the way Cooch Street cuts through Block 76 as a result of the East Side Burnside Cooch couplet project from a few years ago. The property is a former service station. It's vacant and flat. There is some residual soil contamination on the property. There is, on this diagram down here at the bottom, you can see the property. You can see over here, there's a fairly wide sidewalk. In fact, it's a very wide sidewalk. There's about 15 feet of extra right-of-way that's not needed. And so we, PDC, are going through a street vacation process to have that vacated by the Portland Bureau of Transportation, and that property would then be available for the development project. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the property appraised at $1.16 million, which is the same as the purchase price. And just a point about, when I mentioned it's a small, unusual parcel with difficult access, as Geraldene mentioned, when we did the RFI, Guerrilla Development was the only developer that expressed interest in this property. So, you know, it was available to a lot of developers, but this is exactly the kind of property that Guerrilla Development specializes in. And this is also the first definitive agreement we're entering into with Guerrilla Development, so we're excited about partnering with a new developer. So this is the project they're planning. It's called the Fair-Haired Dumbbell. It's going to be about a $14.3 million project. It will contain about 40,000 square feet of creative office space, about 7,000 square feet of retail, and about 38 parking spaces. One of the interesting aspects of this project is that Guerrilla Development is anticipating to raise a portion of the equity through a crowdsourcing capital campaign through Fundrise. And what that is, it's an online opportunity for people who aren't high net worth individuals to invest in real estate projects. And this is a screenshot of the project's Test the Waters campaign from this morning. And you can see that so far they've raised almost $4 million in interest in this property. These are not committed pledges, but they're expressions of interest. And the other thing that's really important here is down here is that those pledges have come from over 1,000 potential investors. So you can see there's tremendous interest from people in investing, not just in real estate projects, but also in real estate projects in their own community that they see are going to add value. The next step in the Fundrise campaign is for Gorilla to file paperwork with the Securities and Exchange Commission, who would then authorize an offering. That offering would be open for 30 days and would be offered to all of those investors that have so far expressed tentative interest in it. And at the end of that 30-day period, whatever money is contributed would be put into an escrow account, and shortly thereafter it would be available to the project. And it's that funding that Gorilla is anticipating using to purchase the property from PDC. So the purchase and sale agreement is attached to your resolution. I just want to go through a few of the key terms in that purchase and sale agreement. First, the purchase price is $1.16 million, which represents a fair market value transaction. PDC is not investing any other resources in the project. The developer will provide PDC a 5% earnest money deposit within 5 business days that we execute the purchase and sale agreement, so that's about $58,000. There's a potential $30,000 price reduction, and this is associated with the residual soil contamination I mentioned earlier that's present on the property. The developer's original preference was to not excavate very much on this property and to provide the parking spaces at grade. As the developers has proceeded through the design review process, they've had 2 design advice request sessions with the Design Commission. It's become increasingly clear, I would say, that there's a strong preference from the Design Commission that the parking be provided below grade. And the developers looked at that, thinks it's probably feasible. And so one of the terms we agreed to in this agreement was that in the event they're required by Design Commission to provide the parking below grade, we would reduce the price by $30,000 to compensate for that extra excavation and soil remediation. The key milestones in the purchase and sale agreement are there'll be a 60-day due diligence period. At the end of that due diligence period, the earnest money deposit is no longer refundable. There's a closing period from October 2014 to February 2015, and the earliest that it can happen is sort of defined by when PDC completes the street vacation process with PBOT and City Council. What Gorilla has said is that they need that extra property in order to make this project feasible. So the closing is contingent upon PDC's successful completion of that street vacation request. And then in the event the developer doesn't commence construction within 3 years, PDC has a repurchase right. And as I mentioned, the developer is responsible for all soil remediation. So in terms of public benefits for this project, PDC will receive proceeds of the project of about $1.16 million, which will be available for other projects and programs in the Central Eastside URA. This advances the Burnside Bridgehead Framework Plan. It supports the entrepreneurial focus of the district. I'd say the Central Eastside is a hot office market, and this supports that. Currently, the project is untenanted, and I guess the way we look at that is that, as Executive Director Quinton mentioned earlier in his report, the office market in Portland is extremely tight, and while the the apartment market and the hospitality market has really taken off in the past couple of years, the office market still hasn't. And so this, I think, expresses the developer's confidence that although the project's currently not tenanted, that they are proceeding with the project and have a high level of confidence that they're going to be able to get the tenants, and this will be a successful project. And since this is a fair market value transaction, the PDC's social equity policy does not apply to this project. However, we've asked the developer, and the developers agreed to track their progress meeting contracting goals. And in fact, we've made some progress on that just in the past couple months. One of the things we did is we arranged a meeting with the Metropolitan Contracting Improvement Partnership and Gorilla Development. And I know you're all familiar with MCIP, but for those who aren't, MCIP is a nonprofit that specializes in increasing the capacity of small contracting firms, and specifically those that are women-owned, minority-owned, or otherwise disadvantaged business enterprises. And I think the conversations we've had between Gorilla and MCIP have been very positive, and not just for this project, but Gorilla has other projects in the pipeline, and I think some of those conversations are going to spill over into some of those other projects. And again, if you have questions about that, I think Anna McKay may be able to speak to that. So that pretty much concludes our presentation. Again, we're asking you to approve Resolution 7042. And if you have any questions, Geraldine and I are available to answer them.
Okay, Anna McKay did sign up to testify, so why don't we call her up and get a little presentation, then we'll bring you back and ask for comments. And good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Andrews, Commissioners, Director Quinton. My name is Anna McKay, and I am the project manager for guerrilla development on this project and all the other projects we are currently working on. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, you know, the only one that I would have for you was that the report doesn't talk about a pre-leasing requirement, and I'm wondering what the thinking is there.
Sure. So the start of that conversation stems from who our lender would be. And we haven't selected that person yet or that outfit yet, but over 11 banks have approached us unsolicited to represent us in this project. We're asking for a $10 million loan from the bank, which is sort of a sweet spot right now and is one of the reasons why we're getting all this interest. Those banks have said between 40 and 50% pre-leasing would be preferable at the point of signing a construction loan. And we've currently gotten 15% spoken for, and there is another 10 to 15% of interest. And I'd be happy to share those names with you, but I'll wait till you request them. And
we won't request them.
Okay. And if for whatever reason we weren't able to get to that 40% mark, which we are quite confident we will, vacancy has never been a problem in our projects, which we're very grateful for. But we have a very robust loan-to-value currently in our pro forma at 65%. And for some reason, if that pre-leasing weren't met, that percentage would just drop. And we've seen our pro forma run great as low as a 50% loan-to-value, which pretty much any bank would be happy to take that on lesser terms. So we feel really confident in our position there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Dixon, any questions for?
No, I don't have any questions.
No questions. John, any questions for Anna? That means no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Since I am here, I would like to just briefly speak to my involvement with MCIP in the last month or so. I've had the great opportunity to meet with Tony, Chris, and Leisha over there, and I was unaware of their services before Eric brought it to my attention, and it seemed like a wonderful match made in heaven for us. We're always looking to meet new people and bring other kinds of folks into our projects. I was able to bring two of our current projects, one in St. John's called 2/3 that we'll be breaking ground in hopefully 2 months, and one at 27th and Sandy called the Zipper, which we've just gotten our construction loan on. And as a project manager, my job is to work with the GC to get our schedule of values into where we need them to be, and I've been seeking out subs independently. And Tony, Chris, and Leisha have been so kind as to take those two projects and post them on their iSquare Foot website. And we've been getting wonderful feedback for some special areas that we've needed help on. For the zipper specifically, we are talking right now with Michael Martin of Northwest Infrastructure to do our site work. And our framing is going to be bid by Teresa Robles of Three Oaks Construction. And as a woman who has worked in both architecture, construction, I'm very excited to be opening up these lines of communication, and it is a personal goal and a goal of my company to bring these folks into our projects as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff, Geraldine and Eric. So let me start by saying, Geraldine, especially in the big picture, it sure is different in 2014 than it was in 2010.
Indeed it is.
Both from an economic basis, but as well as a development basis. And I think the interest that we have in all of these properties is testament to the process that you led that had a tremendous amount of community involvement and included Brad Malson's firm in terms of kind of taking a look at what the opportunities were and really breaking them into what I would call, swallowable bites, which seems to be happening. This particular piece of land is probably the most difficult one in the neighborhood for the reasons that you brought forward. And I think, it's kind of interesting to see crowdfunding used in a project like this, both from a community-based interest as well as, if it works here, I'm sure that we will see it again, probably over and over and over again. I really appreciate the work that you have done to bring the MWESB and the social equity to the project. I will say to the board, this is the last of the projects that will go through what are our current administrative rules, and we are updating those based on the conversations that we have had over the last month and a half. But that's food for another time, actually. So I think that's all that I had. I will start with Commissioner Dixon. You have questions?
Yes, thank you, and I really appreciate your comments as well. I'm happy to know that you're working with Tony and MCIP and incorporating firms. I think your firm sounds like the type of company that cares about sustainability from a lot of different viewpoints, so I'm very happy to hear that you're going to be actually following through on our programs, despite the fact this is a market rate transaction and you don't have to. The other point I would like to make is, with the purchase appraisal price, did that take into consideration the projects that are completed currently on the site, or when was that appraisal done?
It's dated July 2013.
Okay, so the Eastside Exchange was
nearly complete.
And that probably was a part of the analysis to that appraisal?
I don't think that was viewed as a comparable in the appraisal, because that is not a vacant property, it's a built-upon property, so I don't think that was used as a comparable. But
okay, I was just curious, because also in regards to the opportunity for us to repurchase the price, to repurchase the land if for any reason it didn't go through, is that going to be based on what's been developed there, and would we pay more for that property in the future?
No, the repurchase price established is the purchase price, so we would pay the same.
For what?
Correct.
We're just selling it for today. Okay.
Exactly.
I think that's about all for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Kelly?
Sure. I think, especially with our change going forward, I've had all my concerns resolved. I have a question, and I really do appreciate the developers' efforts in reaching out to. The question, because of my own experience with contaminated land, I'm hearing that our liability is limited. Is that right? I mean, is there, if there's remediation that isn't foreseen, we don't have any liability. Is that right?
That's correct.
Other than the possible $30,000 if they go down.
That's correct, yes.
All right. I'm ready to vote.
Great. Commissioner Mollis?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. Yeah, the last thing I would say is great job, Geraldine, on the planning, and great job again, Eric, on your standpoint, on your team. I mean, the thoughts that go into all of the contingencies that are here in terms of making sure that we hit roadblocks or places that we could get over, and we can see what they are before we take the next step. It's very helpful. And we're covered in terms of getting the property back if it doesn't go forward. And it's a great job. Thank you. I would look for a motion then to approve Resolution 7047, authorizing loan modification. No, I'm sorry, it's 7042, authorizing purchase and sale agreement to convey 0.31 acres of real property in the central Eastside urban renewal area to the fair-haired Dumbbell LLC for $1,160,000.
I will make that motion. I have to smile when I make that motion because of the name of the development.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to the groundbreaking. Well, we're running a little behind today. Next item, action item, authorizing a loan modification for the Heritage Building LLC secured by the real property commonly known as the Heritage Building, located at 3934 Northeast Martin Luther King Boulevard in the Interstate Corridor Urban Renewal Area. This is Resolution 7047, and we have Jina.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioner and Executive Director Quinton. I'm Jina Bjelland, the Director of Real Estate and Lending here at PDC, and I'd like to take the opportunity. We're here to approve Resolution 7047, the Heritage Building, and it will result in authorizing a loan modification. I'm going to speak a little bit about the history of this property, and then I will be turning over the rest of the presentation to Kay Little, one of our lending officers. The series of loans are currently secured by the Heritage Building, which is located at 3934 Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. It's a rehabilitated success. The building was originally owned by the Weimer family, and it was opened and operated as a furniture store in 1922. It continued in the family and operated for approximately 47 years before closing in 1969. At that point in time, the building remained vacant. PDC purchased the building and an adjacent parking lot in 1999. PDC's purchase of the building was guided by goals that were articulated in the Albina Community Plan in 1993, the King Neighborhood Plan in 1993, and the Fremont MLK Vision Study done in 2001. The combined focus of these plans was to create an environment that could encourage neighborhood business development and a subsequent increase in living wage employment opportunities for this community. The strategies to accomplish this objective included the identification of nodes within the URA that would maintain and attract family wage jobs and create attractive, buildable sites for new development. PDC implemented the strategy in part by acquiring blighted vacant buildings within the corridor and then securing local development teams to reduce the sites or to redevelop the sites and catalyze the job creation and encourage additional community development in the neighborhood. And now I would like to turn this over to Kay Little.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton. My name is Kay Little, and I'm a Business Finance Officer here at the PDC. I'd like to give you a little more background information about the Heritage Building. PDC acquired the parcels that are now the Heritage Building in two phases. They bought the Weimer Building in 1999 along with the parking lot, and then we purchased the adjacent parking lot in 2001. That same year, we issued an RFP for the purchase and redevelopment of the property. And then after a public review and selection process, the Heritage Building LLC team was chosen to actually redevelop the property. If we fast forward to September of 2005, PDC and the borrower executed loan agreements for loans of about $2.4 million, actually 2 loans that would cover the purchase and redevelopment of the property. And our loan was secondary to a loan of $1.9 million that was provided by Albina Community Bank. So the project was completed in September of 2007, and in place of the abandoned vacant building you see on the slide, the neighborhood now has a 30,000 square foot LEED Gold certified building in its place. Unfortunately, the project was completed as the economic downturn was starting to unfold. And so this resulted in a slow lease up of the property. The consequence of that was that the borrowers then defaulted on their loan agreement with Albina Bank, primarily because they had a difficulty in acquiring new tenants, which meant that they did not hit the debt service coverage ratios that were required in the loan agreement. And so then that caused them to not be able to convert the loan from a construction loan to a permanent loan. Albina Bank then commenced foreclosure proceedings, and they were prepared to sell the building in July of 2008 in order to satisfy the outstanding obligation. So PDC worked very closely with the bank and with the borrowers in order to come up with a resolution to this issue. And then the PDC decided that in order to protect our interest in the property, that we would acquire that senior loan from Albina Bank, and that was done in June of 2009. I would like to point out that despite these challenges, the development team remained very dedicated to this project. They had not taken any money out of the project. They continued to put the extra cash flow back into the project. They put their development fees back into the project. And one member actually took out a home equity loan of $280,000 and put those funds into the project in order to pay for tenant improvement costs. So they've been very dedicated and very focused on the success of this building. The project really has been a success in that it has met the goals that were laid out in the Albina and King neighborhood plans as it relates to job creation and the encouragement of further development on this property. For example, the building had a job density goal of 35 jobs. It has, in fact, we see currently, it has over 60 jobs. The largest tenant in the property that has actually been there since 2007, they have 31 jobs. And then the remaining 3 tenants have a total of 30 jobs. It's interesting also, the largest tenant, the median gross monthly income of their employees is over $4,900 a month. So they definitely pay living wages to their employees. In addition to the job creation goals, we see that the property actually has been a catalyst for other development there in the neighborhood, as well as encouraging other businesses to locate close by. We, for example, have the Shaper Green project, which is located north of the property, the Planned Parenthood headquarters, which is south of the property, and then we see other businesses that have moved within close proximity, some due to the success of the Heritage Building, and those businesses include the Rhythm Traders, Champions, and Ned Lund's. So the property has been a success by all of these measures. So the question comes up then, why are we asking for a loan modification? Well, in 2010 through 2013, the building was 100% occupied. In 2013, 3 of the major tenants actually moved from the building due to the growth of their businesses and the need for more space. 2 of the tenants actually moved to other PDC-sponsored projects. We have Cascade Energy, which had some space at the Vanport Square project in addition to the Heritage Building. They consolidated all of their business in the Eastside Exchange building over in the Central Eastside Urban Renewal area. And then we have the Community Cycling, which moved their operations to the Trade Bindery building in the Interstate Urban Renewal area. So these were good moves for those companies, but not necessarily good moves for the Heritage Building. The loss of these tenants reduced the occupancy of the building to 50%, and then because of this, they were unable to refinance the albino loan, which matured in December of 2013. So that's why we're here with you today. So in looking at the loan modification, if it's approved, it will consolidate the 3 loans into one with a principal amount of just over $4.5 million. It'll also provide a 6-month payment deferral period, followed by 1 year of interest-only payments, and then we'll have regular principal and interest payments for the balance of the term. The reason we structured it in this way was we wanted to minimize the annual debt service during 2014 so that the borrowers can build their reserves and have enough cash in order to pay for tenant improvements and leasing commissions. And we hope that by the end of this deferred and interest-only payment period, that the borrower will be able to fill most, if not all, of the 6 vacant spaces. And actually, they're already making progress toward that. Just last week, they have a new tenant, Vacation Rental. They signed a 5-year lease with 2 lease extension options. This brought the vacancy of the occupancy of the building from 51% to 68%, and it increased gross revenues by over $85,000 a year. Also, this modification will allow us to secure personal guarantees on the total outstanding loan balance. Right now, we only have personal guarantees on the acquired albino loan. It also allows the borrower to stabilize the building and be in a better position to refinance that at the end of the proposed 10-year loan term. But this loan modification also is expected to generate an additional $600,000 in revenues to the PDC over the next 5 years. So there's benefit to PDC, the borrowers, and the community. And so with that in mind, we'd like to ask the board to adopt the resolution to modify the loan to the Heritage Building LLC.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I think I have 2 of the developers that signed up, Eric Wentland and Howard Laux, but they've just requested that they only come up if we have questions. Do you want? Happy to have you. Okay, I don't have any for them in particular. Does anybody else? No. Okay. But thank you for being here. We may have some. I don't know. Sometimes they pop up. First of all, Kay, nice job on your first presentation to the board. It's not all that hard. I've been on the other side. It is hard. This was a difficult project that was conceived in another economy, quite frankly. I mean, 2007, things were kind of rolling along pretty good. I can remember in my business, I got to early 2008, and I started to wonder. And of course, we all know what happened in 2009. So it was a project that was trying to break ground in the neighborhood, and the first time around, the economy fell off a cliff with them. I know it happened before my time because I started in 2008, so this came on beforehand, but I've seen this a couple of times, and I know the developers have put their heart and soul into this particular project and got it full only to have the economy get good and folks grow out of it. So I think for all that the project has done and for all that they have done for the project, that they definitely deserve this opportunity. And the alternative is not much better. So I think you guys have done really good work with this in terms of protecting us and in terms of kind of simplifying the loans that are on the books. So I'm fully in support of this. Start off with you, Commissioner Kelly.
I think I had all my questions answered. Just a footnote of history, the Weimar hardware people were distant relatives of mine, so Portland's so small.
It is. Commissioner Dixon.
I was really happy to hear actually that even in this time period that you were able to lease up some more space from when you initially started this presentation. What space, how much space is left right now for someone to be able to lease? the building?
There are only 4 vacant offices remaining now in the building out of 6 total.
And what are their square footages approximately?
I think most of the spaces are around 2,000 square feet. I could verify that.
Okay.
Mostly around 2,000.
So smaller spaces then. Okay, great. Well, I think you guys did a tremendous amount of work, and I second what Chair Andrews said. The alternative isn't a lot better, and the developers have put a lot of their own personal funds into the project, which always makes me feel more comfortable because it means they actually care about what they're doing and will be responsible with all the future decisions. So I commend you for all the hard work that you've put into the project as well.
Commissioner Bolus?
I'm going to keep my remarks real brief throughout the meeting, partly because my fellow commissioners are asking great questions, and partly because I can hear my voice bouncing around the room, which I can't imagine pleasant for anybody.
Thanks, John. All right, I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 7047, authorizing a loan modification for the Heritage Building LLC, secured by the real property commonly known as the Heritage Building, located at 3934 Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in the Interstate Corridor Urban Renewal area.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Good job. All right, next item is also an action item. Resolution 7048, authorizing Executive Director to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Portland Bureau of Transportation for the construction of the West Burnside and River District intersection safety and access project in the River District urban renewal area in an amount not to exceed $1,879,465. Sarah and Damian with us today. And this is the item that the gentleman testified on at the beginning of the meeting.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Harpole, and I'm joined with Damian Crowder. We are project managers in the Central City Division. We also have Ross Swanson from the Portland Bureau of Transportation available in the audience to answer any questions you may have. We are here today to seek approval of resolution number 7048, which authorizes the IGA with the Portland Bureau of Transportation for the construction of certain infrastructure improvements. This project will result in safety and operational improvements, as well as advancement of action items called out in the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan. The project origins date back to initial studies for options of the Burnside-Cooch couplet, which was approved in 2009. In 2012, the Pearl District Access and Circulation Plan was adopted, and at this time, City Council directed implementation of high-priority improvements called out in that plan. At this point, in December in 2012, the board first heard the presentation of the construction IGA for this project and elected to direct PBOT to conduct additional due diligence for those improvements, which has since been completed. Public benefits of this project include an increase in safety and operations at priority intersections, as well as making ADA and lighting improvements. The project also improves access between off of West Burnside and North Broadway, between adjacent neighborhoods, between Old Town Chinatown and downtown. Those set of improvements were called out in the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan to improve district connectivity and access, which were believed to be impeding district vitality for this neighborhood. The project also meets PDC's equity policy.
Sounds like we lost John.
At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Damian to discuss the finer details of the scope of work for the project.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Chair Andrews, Commissioners. My name is Damian Crowder, Project Manager in Central City. The scope of work for this project includes the addition of 5 new traffic signals in the River District, along with 1 modification at West Burnside and 4th Avenue In addition to that, it also includes pedestrian improvements at 3rd and West Burnside. The intersection between Northwest Cooch Street and Northwest Broadway Street is one of the more dangerous ones in the city, and the traffic signal there was greatly needed. In addition to traffic signals on Cooch at 10th and 11th, along with 2 additional traffic signals on Gleason and Everett. This project previously came to the board in 2012, and at that time, we were only at 30% design and engineering drawings, and there were a lot of questions that were still needed to be answered. The due diligence by PBOT was still kind of in progress, and the decision was made that complete the due diligence and bring back the project. Since that time, in 2012, you can see that the 2 scopes of work up on the screen here, and they removed left turn signal on West Burnside, also another left turn signal on West Burnside, and they made some additional modifications. One of the current IGA proposal, we're at 100% for design and engineering, and there's sometimes the question comes up, but the project budget is still relatively the same. PBOT has added additional funding to the project. The PDC portion was not changed for the project budget. The funding on this screen here, design and engineering PDC, but for the construction IGA, this is the same amount as was in the 2012 proposal, and this shows $300,000 from PBOT for a total project for $2.649 million, 89% coming from Portland Development Commission. Design 100% complete. They're going to bid the project April and May. I'm looking at construction of August through January 2015. Are there any questions?
Well, we do have one person sign up for testimony, Ross Swanson from PBOT. Only if there are questions, okay. I remember the long discussion that we had on this project back in December of 2012, both in terms of how appropriate it was for us to be funding this, as well as just the scope of the project. And so I really appreciate that our concerns really have been followed up on and answered. We have we know what the project is going to cost now. We got answers in terms of safety questions that we had with regard to particular intersections, and so some of the signals have changed in terms of the way they've gone. And I know that there's not complete agreement with this, but I am convinced, I've been convinced by the neighborhood that the safety issues that this will help with, especially with pedestrians, is really going to help provide access from the other side of Burnside to this side of the district. And these businesses over here need everybody that they can get. So I think you've done a good job of outlining what we've done, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Dixon.
This is kind of exciting because it's actually like we had discussions about this a couple years ago, and then it comes back. I know it seems a little odd. I'm sure Commissioner Kelly thought, what the heck are we talking about with traffic signals and lighting here? But I agree. A lot of the issues have been addressed. Obviously, this is all that we have in our budget, and we're glad to know that PBOT is aware of that. And again, addressing safety issues for me is important. I work in this district, and I can tell you one safety signal I'll be really happy to have installed, and that's the Cooch and Broadway. I think I've almost died there so many times since I've been here. So that's an important one going up.
Commissioner Kelly?
So that was when I was briefed on this project, was my first question, why are we funding this? And I realize as a new commissioner that you come in on some history of things, and having actually been in an automobile accident at 6th and Broadway, that brings it right home to me. So I'm good.
Did we lose John? John? Sure. Tell him to put another quarter in.
I think I said 6th and Broadway, I meant Gooch and Broadway.
Gooch and Broadway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that is with. So, John, I think you probably missed the discussion, but this is the project that we looked at as a board in December of 2012 and actually sent back with a whole bunch of questions which have all been answered. And do you have any additional questions at this point?
I don't. I had a good read on it. I'm in for it. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Great. Well, then I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 7048, authorizing the Executive Director to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Portland Bureau of Transportation for the construction of the West Burnside and River District intersection safety and access project in the River District urban renewal area in an amount not to exceed $1,879,465.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Can't wait, especially the Burnside Cooch. Oh, my goodness. That thing is, it's crazy sometimes. I mean, I have to wait for 5 minutes because
You just never know when you can go.
pedestrian will come by and, wow. Tell you what, 2 hours into it, I'm gonna call for a 10-minute break. And John, you don't need to stay on. The last two items, I don't think we need to have take effect in the next 30 days. It's up to you. Budget?
If you don't need my vote, I'll probably drop off so I can keep driving over the mountains.
I couldn't understand you.
We need him?
Don't need my vote, I'll probably drop off so I can keep driving over the mountains.
Yeah, hold on a second.
I think Tony's saying we do need him for item 10.
Oh, okay. We do need you on item 10, so I will call for the break after we get through the first item so that we don't lose you in the mountains, okay? All right, so the next item is Resolution 7049, Public Hearing on Budget Amendment Number 2, adopting Budget Amendment Number 2 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2013, ending June 30, 2014, and making appropriations. Tony Barnes.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton. I'm Tony Barnes, Budget Officer. I'm presenting the second budget revision for the current fiscal year, 2013-14. So the action before you today formally amends the budget for a number of reasons. We'll walk through some of the purposes at a high level. Excuse me. It adjusts the project and program expenditures based on an estimate of year-end expenditures for staff time, property redevelopment, and property management costs. Reduces project and program funding in a number of areas where we're moving dollars from the current fiscal year to next fiscal year, so that lines up in the next version of the 14-15 proposed budget. We're also updating forecasts for resources across all funds, including year-end estimates for short-term debt, also known as de jure proceeds, and to recognize updated property sale assumptions and property management activity throughout the fiscal year. And then finally, we're adjusting the Portland Housing Bureau's set-aside budget based on a request from the Portland Housing Bureau based on current year funding and the dollars that they're moving to next fiscal year. So while we roll up all funding sources, total resources are changing from $103 million, $104 million in revenue to $120 million in revenue. So we're recognizing $16 million in additional revenue. Some of the larger changes include additional short-term debt based on tax increment proceeds around $7 million, property income mainly from property sales of $5.7 million. Most of that's related to the sale of Parcel 8, South Waterfront. But we are also reducing our long-term debt, so we'll have no long-term debt in this year's budget at all. Reducing it out by $2 million. There is also some interfund transfers between different funds at PDC, recognizing some items that we are transferring based on recommendations from our auditors as well as other combining certain funds. On the expenditure side and requirement side, you can see that our current budget was programmed at $190 million. This was the budget that was approved in November. We're reducing it a total of $64.8 million, arriving at $125 million. Some of the larger categories are the housing carryover and large carryover projects and property redevelopment. So most of these dollars are being moved to contingency, which will fall to our ending balance at year end. That's showing as an increase of $76.5 million. And this will roll into our beginning balance for our next version of the 14-15 budget that will be presented at the at City Council in May. So real quickly on covering some of the categories that we just looked at, we are making some reductions in administrative materials and services based on updated estimates on year-end expenditures for overhead. We are reallocating business lending budgets to commercial property redevelopment based on the types of loans that are occurring this year. And then also we are moving some funds forward into 14-15 for committed loans like Daimler and PNCA that are moving into next fiscal year. That's part of that beginning fund balance. In infrastructure, we're decreasing so that we can carry over funds as well for projects such as Killingsworth and Denver Streetscapes and the West Burnside circulation improvements, just the prior item. And housing, as I mentioned, we're decreasing for the year-end estimated expenditures for 14-15 carryover request. It's about $20 million in total that's moving into next year for a combination of committed projects, projects underway, as well as projects that are in the pipeline that will be starting expenditures next year based on cash flow. And property redevelopment, that's the largest category overall. The carryovers related to Veterans Memorial Coliseum, Convention Center Hotel, Eco District implementation, and then the lending programs I discussed for PNCA and other loans in other districts. And as I mentioned before, the transfers, we're adding some transfers between funds for the required interfund loans and reimbursement of funds that have been identified throughout the year. And finally, contingency increases a net $76 million, as I mentioned. Mainly, that's the combination of Veterans Memorial Coliseum, Convention Center Hotel, and the loans, as well as the housing dollars. So we'll be moving those dollars into the beginning balance for 14-15 and adding those to the budget that we started looking at in January for next year in the next version of that budget. So to sum it up, looking at the current revised one budget that was approved in November to the action before you today, expenditures are trued up based on a better estimate of year-end expenditures and what's moving to next year. Overall, administration is about 12% of total expenditures instead of 8% of expenditures. The biggest changes are in housing and property redevelopment based on those changes I mentioned for committed projects and some opportunity funds that are moving from this year to next. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So this is business as usual in terms of our dealing with the budget. We have presented, you guys helped us put together the base budget that's been presented to City Council to date. Now we have to wait to kind of the last minute to take a look at the real projects that are going to get completed and funded this year and put it into the budget for next year so that City Council is seeing something that's much more realistic. So it's kind of chicken and eggy. You wait until just before you have to do that because you have more certainty. And the numbers can be really big. And when your Memorial Coliseum is $21 million alone, so that many of the changes can look substantial, but most of them have to do with projects. Obviously, when the amount of expenditure goes down, the percentage of the overhead goes up. That's going to be
happens in my business too.
That's what happens. So I don't see anything unusual in here, and I don't have any questions. Commissioner Dixon, how are you?
No, I don't have any questions. It's pretty straightforward as usual. Thanks for your good presentation, Tony.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
So it is business as usual. I didn't ask that question the other day. So every year there's this, at this time, there's some kind of, this is a $65 million swing. Is that happening?
Well, when you
Obviously,
get-
the numbers are going to change, but
When you have projects as the size that we have that have been moving forward, like post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's particularly big for that
Yes.
reason. I don't think we're going to have, hopefully at some point these projects will happen or we'll no longer budget them. So I think as a percentage of our overall budget, this is pretty high, but it relates to a handful of really big line items that are rolling over to next year. But these adjust, but yes, the business as usual is we always have projects that we budget for during the year, and by this time of the year, we realize they're not going to happen and it makes sense to make the amendment now.
Right. Thank you. Commissioner Mullis?
No, I'm good. I got a good briefing from Tony and his team on Monday. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I will look for a motion to approve Resolution 7049.
so moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We're done there. Thank you, John.
Want to do the minutes?
Oh, John, yes, while you're there, we can do the minutes. The minutes for January 9th, 2014, you and I and Tom were the only ones in attendance.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, you're now excused.
Okay, thanks, Bert.
Drive
John.
careful.
I will do.
And now I will take a 7-minute break. We'll come back at 5:15.